There are some stories that feel ancient and modern at the same time. Stories about family, about pride, about regret, about the long road back after we have gone too far. One of those stories is known as the Prodigal Son. It is a story Jesus told about a father, two sons, and a kind of love that does not give up easily. And even though the story is thousands of years old, it still feels familiar today, because almost everyone knows what it feels like to want freedom. Almost everyone knows what it feels like to make a mistake. And almost everyone at some point has wondered, can I still come home after everything I've done? Jesus begins the story simply. There was a man who had two sons. The younger son was restless. Maybe he was tired of life on the family land. Maybe he felt trapped. Maybe he looked out at the road beyond his father's house and imagined something bigger, brighter, and more exciting waiting for him. Whatever was happening in his heart, one day he came to his father and made a shocking request. He said, "Father, give me the share of the estate that belongs to me." In other words, he wanted his inheritance early. Now, this was not just a financial request. In that culture, asking for your inheritance while your father was still alive was deeply disrespectful. It was like saying, "I want your gifts, but I do not want to wait for your timing. I want what you can give me, but I do not really want you." It was painful. It was selfish, and it must have broken the father's heart. But the father did something surprising. He gave the younger son his share. He did not force him to stay. He did not lock the door. He let him choose, and soon after that, the younger son gathered everything he had and left home. You can almost picture him walking away, a bag over his shoulder, money in his hand, confidence in his step. Behind him was his father's house. In front of him was the far country, a place where nobody knew his name, nobody knew his family, nobody knew what he had left behind. And at first it probably felt like freedom, no responsibilities, no boundaries, no one telling him what to do. He had money, and when you have money, people often appear. There were parties, there were crowds, there were new friends who laughed at his jokes, stayed close to his table, and helped him spend what he had. For a while he may have thought, this is the life I always wanted. But the thing about living only for the moment is that the moment eventually ends. The money started running out, the excitement faded, the friends disappeared. And then, just when things could not get much worse, a famine hit the land. Food became scarce, work became hard to find, and the young man who had once walked away from home with everything now had almost nothing. No money, no friends, no safety net, no plan. So he took whatever work he could get. He ended up feeding pigs. For the people first hearing Jesus tell this story, that detail would have sounded shocking. This young Jewish man had fallen so far that he was now working among animals considered unclean. And he was not just working there, he was starving there. The Bible says he longed to fill his stomach with the food the pigs were eating. That is how low he had fallen. The son who once demanded his inheritance now had less comfort than the animals in front of him. And sometimes rock bottom is not loud. Sometimes it is quiet. It is a person standing in a place they never thought they would be, asking themselves, how did I get here? And then the story says something important. It says he came to himself. He woke up, not from sleep, but from pride. He finally saw the truth. He remembered his father's house. He remembered that even his father's hired servants had food enough to spare. And he thought, "Here I am, starving, while the servants in my father's house have bread." So he made a decision. He would go home. But he did not expect to go back as a son. He knew what he had done. He knew how badly he had dishonored his father. So he prepared a speech. He would say, "Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants." That was the plan. He was not walking home expecting a celebration. He was walking home hoping for mercy. Now imagine that road back. The same road he once walked with confidence, he now walked with shame. The same path that once felt like escape now felt like confession. Every step probably gave him time to remember. The money he wasted, the people he trusted, the family he hurt, the father he left. Maybe he wondered if the door would be closed. Maybe he wondered if his older brother would be angry. Maybe he wondered if his father would even speak to him. But he kept walking. And then Jesus gives us one of the most beautiful moments in the story. While the son was still a long way off, his father saw him. That means the father was looking. He was watching the road. Maybe he had watched it many times before. Maybe every day he wondered, "Will today be the day my son comes home?" And when he saw him, the father did not stand still. He did not wait for an apology first. He did not cross his arms and say, "I told you so." He ran. The father ran to his son. In that culture, a respected older man running like that would have been undignified. It would have looked almost embarrassing. But love did not care about appearances. The father ran down the road, threw his arms around his son, and kissed him. Before the son could fully explain himself, before he could earn anything back, before he could prove he had changed, the father embraced him. The son began his speech. "Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son." But the father did not let him finish the part about becoming a hired servant. Instead, he turned to the servants and said, "Bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet." The robe meant honor. The ring meant belonging. The sandals meant he was not a slave. He was a son. Then the father said to prepare a feast, because, in his words, "This son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." And they began to celebrate. But the story does not end there, because there was another son. The older brother had been out in the field working. He had stayed home. He had done what was expected. He had carried responsibility while his younger brother was gone. And as he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he asked one of the servants what was happening. The servant told him, "Your brother has come home, and your father has killed the fattened calf because he received him safe and sound." And the older brother became angry. He refused to go in. So now the father came outside again. First, he ran to meet the son who had been lost in the far country. Now, he came out to speak with the son who was angry outside the house. The older brother said, in effect, "All these years I have served you. I never disobeyed your command, and yet you never gave me a celebration like this. But when this son of yours comes back, after wasting everything, you throw a feast for him." Notice what he says, not "my brother," this son of yours. His heart was hurt. Maybe he felt overlooked. Maybe he felt like faithfulness had gone unnoticed. Maybe he could not understand why someone who had caused so much pain was being welcomed with joy. And that part of the story is deeply human too, because sometimes resentment can grow, even in people who never left home. Sometimes a person can be near the Father's house, but still far from the Father's heart. The Father answered him gently. He said, "Son, you are always with me, and all that I have is yours." But then he explained why they had to celebrate. Because his brother had been dead and was alive again. He had been lost and was found. That is where Jesus leaves the story. We are not told whether the older brother goes inside. We are not told whether he joins the celebration. The story ends with a choice hanging in the air. And maybe that is the point, because the prodigal son is not only about one lost son. It is about two. One was lost far from home. The other was lost right outside the door. One ran from the father through rebellion. The other struggled to understand the father through resentment. And somehow, the father loved them both. He waited for the younger son. He pleaded with the older son. He went out to meet each one where they were. That is what makes this story so powerful. The younger son thought his failure had made him unworthy to be called a son. The older son thought his obedience should make him more worthy than his brother. But the father's love was not based on either one of them earning it perfectly. It was based on who the father was. The prodigal son reminds us that bad choices can take us far from where we were meant to be. Pride can empty us. Shame can silence us. Regret can make the road home feel impossible. But the father in the story is not watching the road with anger. He is watching with love. And when the son finally turns around, the father runs. Not because the son deserves a party, but because the son is alive. Because the son is home. And maybe that is why this story still speaks so deeply. Because we all know what it feels like to lose our way. And we all need to know that the road back is still there. The Prodigal Son is a story about waste, regret, jealousy, mercy, and grace. But most of all, it is a story about coming home. And it reminds us, you may feel too far gone. You may feel unworthy. You may feel like you have wasted too much. But the Father is still watching the road, and love is still ready to run.